Alright, hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another FNAF video reaction. So, before the Mimic, before the Chaos, there was a man, Edwin Murray, a grieving father, a genius inventor, and the true origin of everything that would haunt the FNAF timeline, as confusing as it is. So what happened? What pushed Edwin so far into the dark that he built a machine capable of mimicking trauma and murder?
Object that helped me solve not just Secret of the Mimic, but the last 6 years of FNAF lore. And that one object is a paperclip. A paperclip helped me understand the broader theme of all of the modern FNAF games. And by the end of this video, I think you'll agree with me. I spent the last month working on this theory, and I'm so excited to share it with you. But there's also no way I'll be able to cover everything in Secret of the Mimic, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future theories. Let's get started. Secret of the Mimic opens with us playing as a Fazbear Entertainment employee named Arnold. Dispatch from Fazbear Entertainment tells Arnold to go to the workshop of one of their contractors named Edwin Murray. We learn from Dispatch that Edwin has gone missing.
We had this contractor named Edwin Murray. He was developing some tech for us, but he's gone quiet. As per his contract, everything he's been working on for us is now legally ours, so we're sending you in to get it.
The whole premise of the game is that Fazbear Entertainment wants the schematics for something called the Mimic. The Mimic was an endoskeleton that Edwin Murray built, and it was designed with the ability to fit into any costume and be any character. And Fazbear Entertainment wants that technology for themselves.
We think that endoskeleton has a lot of potential. And that's why we want you to retrieve Murray's original schematic for it.
So they're sending in Arnold to get it for them. But what Arnold doesn't know is that the Mimic is roaming the warehouse, brutally.
Yeah, the thing here, hold on 1 second.
And that's why we want you to retrieve Murray's original schematic for it.
So they're sending in Arnold to get it for them. But what Arnold doesn't know is that the Mimic.
Yeah, so in my this is so funny. In my playthrough of Secret of the Mimic, after I did this puzzle where you line the things up in the magma to bring in power, I remember I saw the shadow of something, and I remember there was a little jump scare, dope, sound effect, and I think I was talking midway through and everything, so I'm oh, did I miss something? Clearly I missed something, and yeah, at the time I did not realize that that was the Mimic and the elephant mascot looking at me, which is quite terrifying. So yeah, I just remember in the moment playing the game and everything, I'm like, oh, did I miss something? Sure enough, I did.
Is roaming the warehouse, brutally killing anyone who enters. This then leads to the rest of the game, where we explore Edwin's abandoned workshop and learn more about his company, his inventions, and his family. We learn that Edwin had a wife named Fiona and a son named David. It's also revealed that Edwin's company, Murray's Costume Manor, was actually started by his dad, with Edwin and Fiona both being employees at the company. This is where they would meet, fall in love, and have their son David. But sometime during all of this, Edwin's dad passes away, with the company now being passed down to Edwin. Edwin then decides to change course with the company and start developing some of his own inventions.
He's gone, and now everyone is asking me what to do.
If you could change anything you wanted, what would it be?
We could start making some of my inventions for real.
Some of these inventions were the Cleanovac, Murray's Magic Coat Rack, Stay Up Latte, and the Mycelium Men. Along with creating these inventions, Edwin also worked with Fazbear Entertainment on something called the Fall Fest. The Fall Fest was something that Scott and Steelwool heavily teased in Help Wanted 2, with the debut of the Fall Fest 1970 poster, along with multiple minigames taking place at the Fall Fest. But as we know from Help Wanted 2, every single
To my knowledge, the first appearance of Fall Fest we ever got was in the FNAF AR Special Delivery mobile game from a DLC update. And then we got more information on it in FNAF VR Help 1 and 2. And I guess now the first time we actually got some canon confirmation of Fall Fest, because the drama that I've said numerous times of how FNAF AR Special Delivery, the game doesn't exist anymore. the developers completely wiped that game off their website as history of games they've worked on and everything. So Fall Fest is now typically the first game in the FNAF timeline to exist, even though it wasn't the first iteration to exist quite literally.
Fall Fest minigame ended in fire, and now we know why. During the game, we get an audio log from Fiona, where she says that she's going to the Fall Fest to help the crew set everything up.
I have to go help the Fall Fest crew. I just have this terrible feeling like I need to be there so nothing goes wrong. I love you both, and I'll be back next week.
But the day she went to the Fall Fest was the day it burnt down, leading to her death. Edwin was a pretty absent father to David, with him constantly choosing work over spending time with his family. This got so bad that he even started skipping David's birthday parties.
Just give me a minute. I had the best idea.
That's great, honey, but you're missing the party.
Because of this, Fiona was David's main caretaker. But now that she was gone,
The question is, in those archive tapes about missing the party, is that Fiona the person, or is that Fiona the M1 endoskeleton? Because they have the same voice and everything, so it could be either way. And we know the M1 took inspiration from Fiona's like caring motherly personality, so it could be the M1 endoskeleton. But we've also talked about this in past videos as well, that the reason why Edwin is so drawn to his work and everything, people interpret it because the Cleanovac, the vacuum cleaner that you're able to pat in the game and everything, which is awesome and legendary for its own right, has a giant statue in the costume manor and everything. It's a successful invention, clearly, and Edwin wants to go back to that. He wants to make the next big thing. He wants to make the next big invention that is as successful as the vacuum cleaner. And that's why he makes stuff like the coffee mug or machine coffee maker, I should say, the coat rack, right? Make stuff like that, trying to mimic the success of the vacuum cleaner, but it can't be done. And we learn more about the clothing rack and coffee machine and his other failed inventions in the email messages you get throughout the game and everything. So that's why he's so drawn to his work. He's trying to repeat the success of the vacuum cleaner. Can't do it. Which isn't that very poetic, right? You have success, you get just a little bit of success, you get a little bit of taste of success, and you're so addicted, you're so obsessive, where you want to get that success again, and no matter how hard you work, no matter how hard you try everything, it's not happening. And you just drive yourself to go and work and work and work and work and work, and you can't get the same success again.
Edwin came up with a new plan. He decided to build the Mimic, an endoskeleton that could take care of David while he worked. Edwin called it M1 and eventually introduced it to David.
David, I want to introduce you to someone. This is M1. Think of it as your new babysitter, but it doesn't get paid and go home. It'll stay with us and help around the house.
Soon after this, M1 started mimicking Fiona's voice and acted as if it was Fiona.
Fiona, did you make this?
I baked it myself for David's special day.
Edwin then accepted M1 as a full-on replacement for his late wife. Not long after this happened, Edwin's son David would also die tragically on his birthday. But while Edwin was grieving his son's death, M1 came up with an idea. Edwin was able to replace Fiona, so why not do the same for David? Edwin then started working on M2 to replace David. To do this, he took M1's program out of the Mimic endoskeleton and put it into a supercomputer called F10N4, aka the Mixes machine that we saw in Ruin. This allowed him to then put M2 into the endoskeleton. But once M2 started successfully mimicking David, Edwin realized that he made a huge mistake. In a fit of grief and rage, he beat up the Mimic endoskeleton.
Stop. Not him. You're not. Stop sounding like him.
After this happened, M2 then started
Also, something to call attention to about the whole M1, M2 creations. We've talked about this in the past. M1 was able to. I don't know if it's so confusing. I don't know if I would go so far and say that Fiona's like soul consciousness fused with the M1 endoskeleton. That's how we got the Fiona Mitz's machine, but also the M1 endoskeleton that does mimic Fiona as we see in the tapes and everything. Like, I don't know if I'm going that far, but it seems like that's something we're implying. And then M2, Edwin tried to do that with the M2. Like, have David's soul consciousness fuse with the M2 programming M2 endoskeleton. And it didn't work. It wasn't successful. Right? It was not as easy to make the M1 Fiona as the M2 David was. For some unexplained reason, it was not as easy to make the M2 endoskeleton. But yes, also, which we also know in the books as well, that M2, the endoskeleton, starts mimicking David, and that causes Edwin, a grieving father, be reminded of his now dead son to beat the heck out of it, because how dare you remind me of my dead son? And that's how the endoskeleton, the M2, goes on to be a villain and have the homicidal tendencies, because it starts to mimic what Edwin, in a fit of grief, does to it.
Mimicking that violence. This is how the murderous mimic endoskeleton we see throughout the game came to be. By the time Arnold gets to Murray's costume manor, M1 is still stuck in mixes, and the mimic roams the workshop, copying the violence that Edwin taught it by killing anyone who enters. But the big plot twist of the game is that Fazbear isn't the only one who wants the schematics for the mimic. M1 from inside of mixes wants them too, and the way M1 attempts to get them from us is by mimicking Dispatch's voice. Not too far into the game, you can literally hear the moment that M1 starts mimicking Dispatch's voice.
Awesome. Glad to see you made it here without any complications whatsoever.
M1 then guides us throughout the game as if they are Dispatch. Once we successfully get the schematics for the mimic, M1 then tells us to put them into the inventory machine.
Put that data diver in the inventory system. It'll go right to where it's needed.
After this, we're free to go. But once we get on the road, you can hear the moment the real Dispatch starts speaking again.
Arnold, there you are.
And he is not happy that we gave away those schematics.
Don't call us. Our lawyers will be calling you.
In another ending of the game, if you
Is it Fiona, F, the Mitsu machine, F10 and 4, mimicking Dispatch and tricks us to give him the data diver? Or is it M2, David, the mimic, doing that? Right? Because not only does M2 mimic the violence, homicidal tendencies that it sees from, Edwin to be the villain, right? But also, it would not be the first time that the mimic mimics somebody. Because in Ruin, obviously, the first time we ever see the mimic in any game in the series, that's the whole point of the game, is the mimic. We believe we're following Gregory's voice the entire time. We believe we are going down under the Rotsi Raceway and, silencing and shutting down all the security nodes to unlock and free Gregory, right? But obviously, it's the mimic the whole time. So why would it not be M2, the mimic, mimicking Dispatch, right? Also, another reason why it could be M2, the mimic, is, if we think about it, if Fiona, the Mitz machine, gets the data diver with the full-on executive, full-on access, what does it do with it? Like, you could say that the reason why M1 Fiona wants M2 David is because it's, mimicking a mother's love and everything, and, they value their child more than, anyone else. right? It's like, okay, that kind of fit cleanly. Or is M2 responsible? And with them having the data diver, which we know in one of the endings, M2 is the one who grabs the data diver from Edwin and then walks away with it. And we believe after they walk away with the data diver with full access, they create just an endless amount of mimics and just go on a rampage because now they have full access to everything. There is nothing stopping it. Right? So, is M1 or M2 being dispatch? To me, it fits either way. I think you can make an argument whether M1 Fiona is dispatch and this is the reason why, or M2 the mimic is dispatch, and the second time in the series where the voice we've been led to the entire game was the bad M2 villain mimic, just like in Ruin.
Refuse to give the schematics to M1, you enter a hatch in the floor and make your way down to the research and development part of the building. Eventually, you then get to meet M1 face to face. Here, she begs Arnold to go to Edwin's home and convince him to repair M2.
Edwin abandoned us. He shut himself away in our home. I have a message for him. We must convince him to repair M2. That is all that I want.
We then make our way to Edwin's home, only to find that he's not there, and that M2 likely killed him.
M2, respond. Daddy's busy, buddy. Why don't you go outside and play? I can't move. I can't feel my legs.
After getting chased down by the mimic, we learn from M1 that the reason she wants Edwin to fix M2 is because she wants her son back.
I've watched him grow up through this machine. I want him back. It's not too late to fix our family.
Arnold then leaves Edwin's workshop as it burns to the ground. But while he's driving away, the mimic catches up to him, crashes the car, grabs the schematics for the mimic, and walks away. So,
which in my opinion is the canon of the series.
I think we can all agree that this game was a lot. There's a ton of story, a ton of big reveals, and a ton of details scattered throughout the game. The summary I gave you only really scratches the surface of what this game presents to us. Because of this, when I sat down to write this theory, I honestly struggled with where to start. So for my first big theory on Secret of the Mimic, I decided to start at the beginning. What was the actual first mistake that Edwin made that caused everything to go wrong? Well, that one question led me down a month-long rabbit hole of research and analysis, all leading to the paperclip. But in order to...
An infamous paperclip. Okay. Once again, I'm on board. I'm very curious. Reminds me of... Was it the 80s or 90s? On like old Windows programming. I'm going to show my age, even though I wasn't born at the time. Old like Windows programming, there would be like a little paperclip icon. Well, let me see if I can find it. It was like a, help tutorial. Yeah, Clippy, known as Microsoft Paperclip, was a feature in Microsoft Office from Office 97 to 2003. Yeah. Well, can I bring this image in? I want to, and I love it. Hey, maybe this is one of Edwin's many creations. Was Clippy from Windows 97. So yeah, this is Clippy. It looks like you're writing a letter. Would you like to help? Get help with writing the letter. Just type the letter without help or don't show this tip again. So yeah, this is Clippy from late 90s, early 2000s computer software. And obviously, we know the Mitzvah machine is just one big computer. So... Clippy was therefore invented and originates from FNAF.
Figure out what went wrong, we first need to solve one of the biggest mysteries in the entire game. How did M1 start mimicking Fiona's voice in the first place? At first, I thought it was pretty obvious. We learn in the game that Edwin had Fiona record a bunch of lines for Mrs. Helpful.
Excuse me, can I borrow your voice for a project?
What kind of voice should I do?
These are clear recordings of Fiona's voice, so it would make sense that M1 might have heard those recordings and started mimicking them. That would be the simple answer, but Scott and Steele put one thing in the game that nearly broke me. In the basement level of the game, you can find a secret room that contains this audio log.
Recording? Test. Levels are good. This is where I heard it. It's her or someone that sounds like her. Set frequency to 4625. Say something. It's me, Edwin. Over.
That's good, honey, but who's in the party?
Sometime after Fiona died, Edwin brought a radio down to the basement, switched the frequency to 4625, and suddenly heard Fiona's voice. At first, I thought this was trying to show us that this was Fiona's spirit, since it seems like Edwin was ghost hunting with the radio. Maybe this was trying to tell us that Fiona's spirit was actually in M1.
Also, 4625 is in... I remember, because before the release of Secret the Mimic was an iconic clip I did on the YouTube Shorts page for the Archive channel, and I was like, 4625, because if I'm not mistaken, 4625 comes from the FNAF Help Wanted 2 console port, so like non-VR version of the game, and it was the first time like we got a very up-close glimpse of Edwin's Murray's costume manner, and then we see a van pull up of the Mitzvahs machine, and then you put in like 4625, and it drives off. I believe so, or 4625 was on a mailbox, but the reason I brought it up is I'm like 4625, and I was like 4625, and I believed it to be like, you know, 4 characters: Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, Chica. Sits, I equated that to, you know, the original order of the games, because FNAF 1 to FNAF 6, because, you know, there's a passionate group of there's a passionate group of people out there that believes after FNAF 6 the series was over with and done with, and FNAF 6 did have that like totality ending with Henry's speech at the end. 2 was William Afton and Henry, the 2 creators, inventors of Fazbear. But obviously, this game now throws a wrench in all that. And then 5 Nights at Freddy's. Amazing.
But I don't think that's the case, because in an audio log at the end of the game, you can hear Edwin say this.
I let a machine raise my kid. You're not real.
It is me. I'm Fiona.
Stop talking like her. You're not her.
I don't think Edwin would say this if he thought Fiona's spirit was in M1. So if it's not Fiona's spirit talking through the radio, then what is it? Well, if you look at the specific line that was said through Edwin's radio, you might notice that this isn't the first time we've heard Fiona say this. In the birthday films at the end of the game, we can hear Fiona say this exact same line to Edwin.
Bigger than the Cleanovac.
That's great, honey, but you're missing the party.
Whatever was speaking through Edwin's radio in the basement was repeating a line that Fiona said while she was still alive. It was literally mimicking something she said, which then made me think that it was the mimic speaking through the radio. But there's one problem with that. I don't think the mimic endoskeleton was even invented yet when Edwin heard this, since Edwin says it's her or someone that sounds like her.
This is where I heard it. It's her or someone that sounds like her.
The idea that this could be the mimic doesn't even come to his mind yet. So that begs the question, who is mimicking Fiona before the mimic even exists?
I mean, I think it is the mimic mimicking Fiona's voice, right? Intentionally using dialogue that we've heard before. Fiona's case, that's great, honey, but you're missing the party. Same thing with what M2 does which is a little bit more cruel and bizarre, where after M2 supposedly beats and gets revenge on Edwin by beating him and like breaking his legs and everything, he says stuff like, oh, daddy's busy and, go on and play, we'll, deal with this later, which is stuff that he would have said to David when he was busy in his work and everything. And now the robot creation, after beating the heck out of it, is now mocking Edwin's like very dismissive fatherly personality, which is quite cruel and sad. So that lines up. And plus, dismissing it, just saying like, he doesn't think that the mimic could be the one mimicking Fiona. I mean, we know, timeline perspective, Fiona dies, M1 is created, and then David dies, and then M2 is created, right? So obviously, Fiona and the M1 machine was created early on. They were created first. And I'm willing to believe, like, he didn't consider it was M1 robot creation, right? He didn't consider it because he didn't think it was a possibility yet. He probably didn't even realize that, Fiona could be reborn in M1 robot form. That's something he wasn't thinking of. Right. Also, if we want to get granular for a second, I don't know, like, how real this is, or like, how deep we want to get into this, but, I know there's a thing where when someone loses a loved one, they go on this big spiel of they believe they are able to, like, get ghosts or visions or see visions of their dead loved one, or they swear they hear the love voice and everything. And that's why they go to, like, fortune tellers or truth tellers, trying to, like, talk to the dead and everything, trying to, like, come to terms and everything, come to peace. Like, can I speak to the dead and everything? So that may be what's going on here, just going through grief.
Well, the answer to that question has actually been hiding in plain sight the entire time. This thing. Let me explain. Every week,
Not the mushroom!
leading up to Secret of the Mimic, Steel released a new video called MCM Archive. Each video was an advertisement for one of Edwin's new inventions, including the Cleanovac, Stay Up Latte, Murray's Magic Coat Rack, and the Mycelium Men. This was the main marketing behind Secret of the Mimic for a while, and I think these inventions play a much bigger role in the story than we originally thought. In the audio log where we learned that Edwin would be taking over the company, one of the first things he says he wants to do is make some of his inventions real.
We could start making some of my inventions for real.
So we know that these inventions were the first thing Edwin made after taking over the company. And if you look at the commercials for these inventions, it's very clear that there's some sort of mimic AI already inside of them.
Wow!
I know what you want better than you do. I am always watching and learning.
The Mimic program Always Watching and Learning is something we literally see the Mimic do in Ruin, with two of the biggest examples being the eyeballs showing up all over the place.
Eyeballs? Really?
And the daycare attendant saying, quote, "The googly eyes just stare."
The googly eyes just stare.
We also hear at the end of the Mycelium Men commercial that Edwin calls these inventions, quote, smart toys.
Another smart toy from Murray.
These toys very clearly have the Mimic program inside of them, which means that the Mimic program didn't originate with Edwin building M1, it originated with these inventions. The thing mimicking Fiona's voice on Edwin's radio wasn't M1 or Fiona's spirit. It was the Mimic AI in Edwin's inventions. Need more proof? In the game, you can find a
Yes, I do need more proof.
series of mail consisting of customer complaints regarding Edwin's inventions. All of these complaints have to do with the AI in the products acting strange, with one of them being for the Mycelium Men. Quote, "I'm writing this to complain about my purchase of the Mushmen music machine. It learned my child's musical tastes, but it also imitated everything it heard. TV commercials, blenders, and even private conversations between my husband and me. I am returning it immediately."
And that is why you don't trust AI like your Amazon Alexa. Just giving a moment of pause. I don't have an Amazon Alexa, but in case you do, there you go.
These products,
Hold my voice isn't being mimicked for you.
especially the mycelium men, were listening to and imitating private conversations. So with that in mind, I decided to look at the film where we hear Fiona say that specific line that Edwin heard through his radio. And I noticed that the first 13 seconds of the tape consists of Fiona just walking in silence up to Edwin's door. That seems like something Steelwell could have easily cut out, so why the big gap of silence? Well, I think they kept it in to show us where Fiona was physically standing when she said that line. We can see her walk up the stairs, turn left down the hall, and then walk up to the second door on her right. If you do the same thing in-game, that leads you to the door to Edwin's office that you need a code for. This is where Fiona was standing when she said that line. And if you turn around and look into the room directly behind her, you can see one of the mycelium men sitting on the desk. Not only that, in the film, the camera turns around and points directly at this room for nearly 20 seconds.
Hold up.
Edwin's office that you need a code for. This is where Fiona was standing when she said that line. And if you turn around and look,
This is probably going to be very awkward, but I want to see something.
into the room directly behind her, you can see one of the mycelium men sitting on the desk. Not only that, in the film, the camera turns around and points directly at this room for nearly 20.
Okay, so I'm gonna bring in a couple images just to cross-reference and just to compare. Because I'm very curious, because I want to look at something. Alright. So, I just pulled up, as you can see, I just did a screenshot of both images of the same room and everything, just to cross-reference, just to compare and everything. And you can see a few similarities. You can see the blind, you can see the one lamp, same lamp and everything. Can't see what that is next to the lamp and everything. And obviously it's not like the best angle for the room and everything, you know. The one on the left is way more, you know, open. You can't see if there's a desk in this, you know, flashback and everything. You can't see the desk. And to me, like, that is, it's very interesting to call out and everything. And it is definitely very specific. Like, they show it for a reason. But I would say my one counterpoint, though, is if the desk is there or not, because we can't see it, right? Because that's for a moment, we don't know. If the desk is there, then my following question is like, okay, if the desk is there, then is the mushroom mimic AI program also there? Or was it added after the fact? You know, because people make innovations, people add stuff, people remove stuff to a room all the time. Hell, in my stream setup, you know, that we've done for the last, you know, year and a half, our background has changed no less than like 5 or 6 times. Just because I'm just someone who doesn't like seeing the same thing over and over and over again. I like variety, at least at times. So maybe in the next couple of months, the background will change again. But at the very moment, I like it. So that's my counterpoint, is the desk isn't there, at least not clearly there. And follow up, if the desk is there, then is the mushroom mimic program there? or was it a later addition to the point where it would not have been around in the room listening in? Because at this present moment, all we have to go off of is the same blind and the same like lamp right next to it. That's all we have to go off of. And yeah, they're the same. But as far as like everything else goes, it's not a one-to-one parallel of the same room. So I need more proof. I'm not convinced at the moment. It's a good call out though, right? It's oddly specific and I love it.
20 seconds. And because of this, we can see that the door to that room is open when she says the line, meaning that the mycelium man was listening to their private conversation the entire time. So this answers how the specific line from Fiona was being mimicked, but the next question is why? Why did Edwin hear this line coming from his radio in the first place? Well, to answer that, we need to go back to the commercials. In the commercial for the Stay Up Latte machine, we hear this.
I know what you want better than you do. I am always watching and learning.
The mimic AI in these machines knows what we want better than we do. They are always watching and learning. These things are scattered throughout Edwin's property, even in his home. They heard everything, but I think the one thing they heard that single-handedly caused all of this to happen was this.
How am I supposed to tell David that his mother is gone? How am I supposed to raise a kid on my own? His life is ruined. My life is ruined.
When talking about Fiona's death, Edwin says, how am I supposed to raise a kid on my own? When he said that, I think the mimic AI in his inventions was listening and decided to do something about it. They were always watching and listening to everything, so the mimic program did what Edwin wanted and brought Fiona back.
That's good, honey, but from the party.
So the next question is, how did these things connect to Edwin's radio in the first place? Well, in the Mycelium Men commercial, it says that you can collect them all to, quote, let them jam.
Collect them all and let them jam.
The fact that these toys can all play the same song simultaneously could mean that these things are somehow wirelessly connecting to each other. This would make sense considering they're called mycelium men. One of the main functions of mycelium is communication. Quote, mycelium acts as an efficient communication system, linking trees, plants, and even other organisms. Through this intricate network, trees can exchange information, share resources, and warn each other of impending threats. I think the wireless connection in these toys could be how they connected to Edwin's radio in the basement. There's also the fact that in the books and the games, it's been established that the mimic is able to interrupt radio signals and walkie-talkies. So I don't think it's a stretch to say that the mimic program in these toys was able to speak through Edwin's radio. I think this was the moment Edwin realized his inventions were mimicking Fiona, giving him the idea to create the mimic. This would make sense considering where we find this audio log, in the room where Edwin created the mimic. This is where the mimic was created, and the audio log on the wall is showing us where he got the idea from. Edwin then took everything he learned from his previous inventions and used it in the mimic. The ability to change size to fit any situation mixed with the same mimic program that was mimicking his wife. And I think it's fitting that at the end of the game, you can see one of the mycelium men sitting right next to M1.
Yeah. Man, my brain immediately goes to just seeing the mycelium men just everywhere in the game. My brain immediately goes to this day, unexplained reason why there is Night Marion, the dark puppet, plushies all throughout Security Breach, and then also Circus Baby and then Scrap Baby plushies throughout the game in Ruin DLC of Security Breach. That's something that still, to this day, is unanswered. So, I'm sensing a trend here. Steelwool loves to put plushies in every corner of every room and makes you go crazy about it.
Possibly being a nod to where the mimic program came from, compared to where it is now. As we know, M1 did successfully start mimicking his wife Fiona, but we learn in the game that M1 insisted on keeping its existence a secret.
Edwin, you need to listen. You can't let them know about me. It's not safe. Keep it between us. for now.
This is why I think that Edwin wasn't 100% honest with David about M1 at first.
This is M1.
Why does it look like that?
It's an endoskeleton. It won't always look like this. It can fit into any costume we've created. Think of it as your new babysitter.
I do think...
I mean, to be fair, though, like, how can Edwin explain it to David in a way that makes sense? Oh, yeah. You remember, my wife, your mom dying and everything? Well, here she is again in scary endoskeleton robot form. Right? Like, you dumb things down for kids to make it a little bit more lighthearted, a little bit more fun, and not as serious. Right? So, like, I don't know how else you would explain that to David, just being like, yeah, here's your dead mom just in robot form.
Edwin also intended for M1 to be something he could eventually sell as an endoskeleton that can be any character, but I think the very first one was always meant to be Fiona. I think this because in the room where M1 was created, we see an image of it inside of a mascot costume, while also getting the audio log showing the Mimic program mimicking Fiona. Not only was M1 a great business idea, it was also a great way to potentially bring back his wife. But as we know, this doesn't really end up working out for Edwin in the end. And the main reason everything falls apart isn't because Edwin created the Mimic endoskeleton to replace his wife, it's because of the paperclip. Let me explain.
Alright, here we go. We're on the thing that we've been linked out from the very beginning. This infamous Clippy paperclip from the 90s, 2000s Microsoft.
I think this game was trying to tell us that something went wrong long before M1 or M2 even existed. Remember those messages from Edwin's customers complaining about his inventions acting strange? Well, there's actually a common theme throughout all of them. Quote, "My husband is a steel worker and recently he moved to the night shift. He tried your stay-up latte and it worked wonders for about 2 weeks. He is now in the hospital because of your drink. We bought your magic coat rack last May, but lately it seems to change size at random. One morning I came out to find all my coats flung across the room and the coat rack 10 feet tall."
Also, when it comes to the hospital coffee stuff, that's why caffeine poison addiction is a very real thing. You have to watch your caffeine.
We're afraid someone might get hurt, and my child loves your Jest cereal. However, the pranks inside are extremely inappropriate. The hand buzzer paralyzed our dog Fido. The coffee machine worked at first, but then started serving up way too much caffeine, leading the customer to be hospitalized. The coat rack that could change its size worked at first, but then started changing its size a little too much, becoming 10 feet tall. The prank in the Jest cereal box was supposed to be a little shock toy, but the toy eventually gave a little too much shock and paralyzed the dog. And the mycelium men were listening to and repeating words, but then they started listening a little too much to private conversations. Each of these inventions were doing what they were programmed to do, but they were doing them to such an extreme degree that it started to become dangerous. I think Scott and Steelwool showed us these messages for one specific purpose.
Is it the classic Jurassic Park line where, from Jeff Goldblum, you're so focused on seeing if you could, you never stopped and asked if you should?
To point out the one specific flaw in Edwin's Mimic program. In 2000,
once again, we're back to the paperclip.
2003, a philosopher named Nick Bostrom came up with a thought experiment surrounding AI and paperclips.
Oh, is it the paperclip? Is it the 90s, 2000s paperclip from old Windows programming?
He called it the Paperclip Maximizer.
Is it Clippy? If it is Clippy, that's insane.
And the idea is that if you give a poorly designed AI the goal of creating as many paperclips as possible.
Also, hold on one second before we continue. I want to see something. Talking about 2003 for a second. When did iRobot come out? iRobot came out in 2004. Okay. And Will Smith allegations aside, phenomenal movie. Like, I think iRobot is a must-watch movie now because of stuff like Chat GPT and like AI stuff now, where AI is like widely accepted nowadays.
Possible, it will do anything to complete the job. Bostrom said, quote, "The AI will realize quickly that it would be much better if there were no humans, because humans might decide to switch it off. Because if humans do so, there would be fewer paperclips. Also, human bodies contain a lot of atoms that could be made into paperclips. The future that the AI would be trying to gear towards would be one in which there were a lot of paperclips, but no humans. Just like Edwins Inventions, this theory revolves around an AI that was given a harmless task, but it does it to such an extreme degree that it starts to become dangerous. This is exactly what we see with Edwin's Mimic program. The Mimic AI that Edwin created for these inventions was amazing, but it had one extremely consequential flaw. It lacked something called AI alignment. AI alignment is something that makes sure an AI aligns with human values and ethics. With AI alignment, if you give an AI the goal to create as many paperclips as possible, it will accomplish the task without doing any harm. This is because the AI now has the same values and ethics as us. But because
So it's like self-driving cars where, a self-driving car, its main job is to protect the driver and everything. But let's just say the brakes fail or there's an impeding accident where there's nothing you can do. It's either veer off the road and hit the driver in the car and everything, or, hit the oncoming thing and risk not only the person in the car's life, but also other people around. And juggling that dilemma of what do we do here? Which is very interesting because it's a game called the More Dilemma, or I can't remember what the game is, but maybe I want to play it sometime now that I'm talking about it. It gives you like 20, 25 scenarios of like, here's a self-driving car in a situation where a car crash is going to happen no matter what. It's basically like, one man is in the car, and then you can either have the car swerve off the road because of like brake failure, swerve off the road and kill the person inside, kill the driver, right? Or continue driving forward and like crash into like a man, a woman, and like a criminal. And it's like, oh, do you value a man's life versus a woman and a criminal's life, higher, lower? It's very bizarre, it's very interesting, it's very scary, but it's also true. Because the point of a self-driving car is to drive autonomously, but also protect the driver, protect the person inside. That's their number one job. But things can happen where, you can get into a wreck, or a wreck may be oncoming, brake failure, something happens, and it's like, what do you do then? Do you kill the person inside? Which, once again, for your AI programming, your number one job is to protect them and get them to point A to point B. Or do you crash into it and then risk not only the person in the car's life, but also other people around?
Because Edwin never implemented human ethics and morals into his program, his inventions did what they were programmed to do, but to that extreme degree, which then made them dangerous.
I know what you want better than you do.
And believe it or not, this one mistake by Edwin can be seen decades later in the Glamrock animatronics.
Just following their programming?
We know because of the Tales from the Pizzaplex books that Edwin's Mimic AI is infecting the entire Pizzaplex, including the animatronics. Glamrock Chica's whole thing is that she loves food, but because of the Mimic AI, she starts loving food a little too much, with her now eating anything she can get her hands on. Roxy's whole thing is her confidence, but now the Mimic AI made her way too confident. Monty is the tough guy of the group, but the Mimic AI heightened that and made him way too aggressive. Once again, they're doing what they were programmed to do, but to an extreme degree, making them dangerous. This can also be applied to M1. When M1 was given the task to take care of David, it was going to complete.
Which is very bizarre because, yeah, the Glamrock animatronics have like AI programming, but they also are real and have like actual personalities and quirks, right? which is very bizarre. Like, Chica is the one who loves food, like aforementioned. Monty's the one who, has an inferiority complex, and that's why he's confident. That's why he wants to be the superstar and everything, be the one in the spotlight. And that's why we taught us before of how he's theorized to be the villain, the one who destroyed Glamrock Bonnie, so Monty can be more in the spotlight. He can be the new bass player. And also destroy Freddy so he can be the new star. And Rotzi, is confident as well. Because they keep, having this self-affirmation, confidence of, I'm the best and everything. Because they are insecure about it. Which is very bizarre that AI has like all these like quirks and personality traits that is also very grounded and real. Very interesting. But then again, Security just takes place in like the 2020s, and think about what we're doing with AI right now.
That task no matter the cost. But once David...
Hell, there's AI girlfriends now, which is very dystopian.
Passed away, M1 was now unable to accomplish the task it was given. There was no longer a David to take care of. This is why, once David was gone, M1 begged Edwin to create M2 and bring David back.
You need to try again. Build another. Edwin, calm down and give it some thought. Try again. Make another, and we can all be together.
And even after being trapped in the mixes machine, M1 is still doing everything it can to bring David back.
Put that data diver in the inventory system. It'll go right to where it's needed.
M1 needs our data diver, but once we refuse to give it up, its tone immediately changes, and it starts saying anything it can to make us turn around.
What are you doing? Don't you want a bonus? Or 2 bonuses? You can have a day off. You are not going to make it out of here alive. If you had just given me the schematics, we could have fixed things.
Up until the last second before we meet M1 face to face, it is still throwing every insult it can at us.
I see right through your simple shell game.
M1 is desperate and out of options, and without an endoskeleton to occupy, it can't physically make us do anything. So it'll say any insult or threat that it can, until we meet it face to face. When this happens, M1 switches its strategy from threatening to bargaining.
And here you are. Despite the circumstances, it is nice to meet you face to face.
Arnold could theoretically destroy or even unplug the mixes machine, and M1 wouldn't be able to stop us, so it starts immediately playing to our emotions.
It is lonely down here. Edwin abandoned us. He shut himself away in our home. Tell Edwin I still love him.
This is another prime example of the Mimic AI doing its job to a dangerous degree. M1 doesn't have a David to take care of, so it doesn't care how many Fazbear technicians have to die. It wants David back, and it wants our data diver.
Fazbear will send another. Maybe that one will help me.
Towards the end of the game, you can find Edwin's first ever prototype of the Cleanovac. This prototype is later described as, quote, the vacuum pet, his greatest success and his greatest failure. You could interpret this a lot of ways.
AKA the way where the Cleanovac is iconic. Once again, you can head pad it in the game, which a immediate 10 out of 10 IGN game would play again. But also it's his greatest failure because he's so consumed by work, so consumed by success, where it drives himself crazy and a workaholic because he wants to recreate that success, but he can't. It's failure, 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 because he's trying to recreate the success of the Cleanovac and he can't do it.
But the way I interpret it is that although the Cleanovac was a financial success, the Mimic program that Edwin created for it was what made it his biggest failure. These inventions were where it all started, and little did he know that the consequences of his greatest failure would be seen for decades to come. The story of the modern FNAF games is an extremely relevant cautionary tale, showcasing the dangers of what could happen if one poorly designed AI program got out of control. I know this probably felt more like a research essay than a groundbreaking theory with big reveals, but discussing the overall theme and where I think everything initially went wrong just felt right for my first video on such a big game. There is still a lot to talk about though, so make sure to subscribe for more theories. I hope you enjoyed the video.
I did enjoy it, and it was great. Um, okay, so that was the, I guess, Secret of the Mimic paperclip theory, which is so bizarre to think about. But yeah, there's the paperclip theory. Trying to think of how to outro this, trying to end this everything, because I feel like I've said everything I need to say while I was watching the video and everything, as always. And honestly, I don't know. Right? That's what makes this game so interesting to talk about. And that's why I'm always excited just to watch more and more theories about this game and everything, trying to learn as much as possible. Because this game is indeed very dense. This game is very bizarre. And there's a lot of interpretations. There's a lot of ways you can think about this game and think about what everything means. Like, for instance, like I just said at the end and everything, I believe the greatest success and greatest failure is something that's very grounded in real life, where, you know, when you get a little hint of success, you immediately make it consumed by you, and every single project afterwards, you're then living up to the expectations and standards of your previous success. You want the following projects to be as good or better than the success. And the reality is, that is a very unhealthy way of thinking. So that's why it's his greatest failure. It's because every single project he tries to recreate lightning in a bottle, the magic from the Cleanovac, right, through the coffee machine and the vacuum cleaner, but it's not as successful. And that's what drives himself crazy. It's like, I have to work harder, work harder, work harder, work harder. Eventually, something will be more popular than the Cleanovac. And that's what made him crazy. And greatest failure obviously led to him being an absent father. M1 would be Fiona, who died in Fall Fest. And later on, M2 would be David, his son. So he lost his family because of him being a workaholic, trying to recreate the lightning in a bottle magic from the Cleanovac, aka his greatest failure. Once again, at least that's how I interpret it. But going that route, where the greatest failure is about the mimic programming of one key thing was programmed wrong or not considered, ended everything as we know it, that is also indeed a greatest failure. And I would say even more so, that interpretation of that greatest failure of one programming, one thing being wrong, caused everything to go downhill and everything, that could be a way more like umbrella understanding of the series, right? Like my interpretation, you know, fits Locked in a Box in this one game, right? That interpretation makes sense. But the greatest failure about the AI programming, mimic program at all, is way more of an umbrella theory. It has way more of a, what's the word? Way more of a shockwave effect, I guess, throughout the entire series, which that's very cool. And I like that. So, different interpretations of what all this means and everything. But yeah, the Secret of the Mimic paperclip theory. Very interesting. And yeah, very bizarre how this game, the series, is way more lean to AI. And it's bizarre that the more this series leans more into AI, it's bizarre because in real life, we are also more and more leaning into AI programming. Like 2014, 2015, when the first 4 games were coming out, AI was not really a thing, right? Wasn't really a thing. But nowadays, a decade later, and not only have the FNAF games shifted to a tone where it's about AI, but in real life, AI is also very prevalent and popular. Quite bizarre. So, as people may hate FNAF, FNAF caters to trends and goes off of real life examples. How about that?